Welcome to the DecisionWise podcast series. My name is Justin Warner, and I will be the host for today's podcast. I'm joined today by Dave Long, a DecisionWise Senior Employee Engagement Consultant. Dave has been with DecisionWise for over 5 years, where his primary focus is facilitating and creating change in organizations that lead to a more engaging employee experience. Dave is an expert in evaluating current levels of engagement, potential courses of action, and identifying an organization's readiness for change. Thanks for being here with us, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Over the next month, our podcast will focus on the DecisionWise Employee Engagement Magic Model. The best-selling book, Magic, The 5 Keys to Unlock the Power of Employee Engagement, specifically outlines each of these 5 keys and their impact on building employee engagement. Those 5 keys are meaning, autonomy, growth, impact, and connection. So over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be discussing each one of those 5 keys and how we can build employee engagement with those. So today we're going to be discussing the first of those 5 keys, which is meaning. So Dave, let's go ahead and start out with a brief discussion around how meaning specifically relates to employee engagement. So I know it's the first of the 5 keys. It helped create the acronym there, right? But let's talk about that, how specifically meaning relates to employee engagement.
Well, it's critical. It's one of the, if not the most important factor of all the 5 magic factors. In fact, as we work with organizations and we do kind of organization by organization, we do driver analysis in those organizations. We expect to find the magic factors in play, all of them, right? In some organizations will emphasize growth or connection or impact, but almost without fail, meaning will always be present as a factor for a driver of engagement in your organization. So really, of all the factors that we can talk about in the magic model, I think it's one of the, if not the most important factor for people. Meaning relates to overall engagement in the sense that there are factors that lead you to either disengage or engage in organizations. Most of the factors that lead you to disengage in organizations would be things like I'm not paid enough, or I don't have training, or I don't have tools to do my work, or I don't feel safe in my work environment. Once those things are all in place, you feel pretty satisfied in your work. You're not really looking to leave anywhere. Meaning is one of those things that brings you to the next level of commitment to the organization, causes you to be more engaged in your organization. Meaning, if we were to define it, is very simply, I can find purpose in my work beyond just the job or the task itself. So if I'm, I don't know what task it is, but if I'm assembling widgets on a factory floor, the purpose of that might be just to assemble a widget. But when I have meaning, I'm saying, I know what this widget is for and the good that it does in the world, whatever that might be. Usually for a customer or a stakeholder, I'm doing some good in the world. And when I can see my task and the thing that I'm doing day to day as that, as opposed to just assembling a widget, then I start to really commit to that work that I'm doing.
Oh, that's really good. So then what I hear is you're talking about 2 different types of meaning, right? Kind of go into that a little bit, where I know that we have inherent meaning when we do our job, and then there's associated or different types of meaning that go. Take that a step further and how those 2 work together, or how they might differ in the job.
So 2 different types of meaning. One is inherent, as you mentioned, and the other is associated. Inherent meaning is just what I've been talking about. I see the direct correlation between the work that I'm doing and the good that happens in the world as a result of that. So, and I say good, but the positive change, whatever it might be, the better life that I'm creating for my customer or my constituent, whatever it might be. So I can see how the work that I am doing leads to that, and there's a very direct tie to it. That's inherent meaning. When I have associated meaning, I understand how the work that I am doing allows me to do other things that I find meaningful. It might be that because I do this job, I have a schedule so that I can go to my kids' soccer game, or because I do the work that this job, or because I have this job, I have the money to pay for a house. That's meaningful to me. Property ownership, whatever it might be. All these other things that I do outside of work that are meaningful to me, my work allows me to do those things. The danger with associated meaning, or organizations depending on associated meaning to like give people their meaning at their work, is that could be said of any job that I ever get. So I can make money anywhere that allows that lifestyle for me, outside of work. So that's the danger. But there's danger on the other side too. If I only have inherent meaning and my job gives me meaning and purpose while I'm at work, but it doesn't allow for me to go out and buy a house or do all those other things, it's dangerous both ways. You can't have one thing and not the other, because that's not a job that people can stay in. You have to have a job that allows for both. But if I'm only getting associated meaning from work, then I can just leave this job and get associated meaning anywhere, because it's basically about the schedule I have and the money that I make from work.
That's great. Dave, I've heard you speak a lot of times about how engagement is a 50-50 proposition, meaning that the company has an obligation to create an environment for engagement, and then the employees have to both learn and choose how to become engaged. Mm-hmm. When we think about the organization, what responsibilities do the organization have, or how does an organization create meaning, or a structure where meaning can exist?
That's an interesting question, because meaning is one of those things that I think that people bring with them into the workplace. It's one of those things that you carry with you. So when you walk through the doors on the first day of work, you have lived a life where you've decided certain things are personally important to you. You've established certain values that you have. And when you walk through the door on the first day, you carry those values with you. You don't check them at the door on your way in. They stay with you through your job, through your work. And so you will always have those values and those things that are personally important to you. It's unlikely that when you go work for an organization that they're going to get you to change your mind on those things that have been important to you your entire life. What they can do and what they can control is they can, number one, make sure you're one of those people that finds the work that we do here important, right? So in the selection process, the question, why do you want to work here, is a really important question. It's not, and if the answer is, I want to work here because I live across the street, or I want to work here because you pay me 25 cents more an hour than the other guy will pay me, those really aren't things that are going to be kind of lasting in terms of what's personally important to me. But if the answer is, hey, what you do here is incredibly important to me, I want to be a part of that, that means that person's going to be walking through the door on the first day of work with a purpose that's pretty aligned to this organization. So you do something in the selection process to make sure you're bringing in people that find the work that you do personally important. The second thing that you can do is highlight what those values are, what those beliefs are for the employee, and help them draw lines from their values to the values of the organization, so that they understand, hey, the way we do things here and the things that we're trying to accomplish are things that actually align with your values, and helping them connect the dots for that.
And that's a reason why companies publish and have missions and values. And so that consistency between those values and an employee's values is what can drive it meaning. Did I understand that right?
Yeah. One of my favorite definitions for meaning is, what's important to me is important to the organization that I work for. And I'm not here to tell you that I'm a huge fan of company value statements. I think that they can be useful, definitely. And same thing with mission statements. I'm not saying that every organization has to have it. But whether or not you've taken the time to write your values down on a piece of paper, your organization has them. Mm-hmm. They have values. You have values about the way you think that the work should be done. And you communicate those values, maybe not through a value statement. You communicate them through your actions, through how you make decisions, through how you deal with difficult situations when there's a choice that you have to make. Those values come out. And I'm going to say that people that come to work for you will know pretty quickly whether or not the values that you're espousing as an organization aligns with their own personal values.
Yeah, that's great. Do you happen to have any experiences or stories from clients that you've worked that you could share with us about where values have really driven meaning, or where meaning was really evident in the organization?
Yeah. You know, a lot of the organizations that really drive meaning well are really good at putting their focus on some external element. So that might be a stakeholder outside of the organization. So one organization, a software company that I work with, for example, one of their key values is do what you need to do to help the customer. And it's a software company. It's not even a SaaS. It's not even software as a service. It's just a software company. So it's kind of and it's business to business. So it's not like individuals, it's businesses that they're helping. But that's so ingrained as part of their narrative that they talk about every day that it is able to raise the eyesight of the entire organization. So they're no longer thinking about how I interact with you, or how the company treats me unfair, or I have to do more than you did, or you took an extra donut from the break room, or whatever it might be. They're focused on what do we do together to help the customer. And that creates meaning for them. That value, that helping other people, almost everybody will carry that into work with them every day. I want to do something to help other people. That's meaningful for people. And getting into that, making decisions based on that organization has a high level of meaning.
That's great. So maybe we can shift gears a little bit and talk about the other 50% of the proposition where, we know what organizations can do. I'm an individual. I want to find greater meaning in my job. Maybe talk about how meaning outside of work also correlates with what I do in work. And then what can I do to, one or two steps that I could take to improve meaning as an employee in my work?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, with the kind of the correlation with meaning outside of work and meaning inside of work. As I mentioned before, what's important to you outside of work doesn't change because you came to work that day. Those things are always going to be important to you. So a couple of things. How do you build meaning at work? First would be focus on the constituent or the people or the stakeholder that you are serving as an organization. So you lift your focus from, how do I get what I need out of this job to how do I help other people get what they need? And that might be your coworkers, but that is probably going to be some external customer that you're serving. How do I help them, get the service that they need that will ultimately lead to an easier or better or whatever life for my customer? And if you put your focus on that, then you tend to kind of forget about your own needs and kind of subordinate those to the needs of other people, which can lead to more meaning. The second thing is evaluate your own values. And of course, when I'm talking about values, I'm not just talking about the things that I value. Everybody values, for example, money. They assign some value to money. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the things that are really important to you. And see how those values line up with the values of the organization that you work for, and see if there's some compatibility there. I think the more people will do that, the more they say, okay, there's more common ground than maybe I thought there was. If there is no common ground, or if there's limited common ground, and if you don't think that what your company does is important and what they're trying to accomplish, if you think that's not important, then there's a chance that you're never going to be able to engage. Remember at the very beginning, I said, meaning is one of the, if not the most important factor to whether or not I'm going to engage. If you can't find meaning where you're working, it's unlikely you're going to be able to come back from that and really engage over the long term. You might engage for a growth opportunity or for this or that, but over the long term, it's going to be hard for you to engage. And so there may be a reason for you to say, if what I think I'm doing, if what I'm doing is completely unimportant to me, it doesn't fulfill any of my values, it doesn't fulfill me as a person, there may be a reason for you to say, where can I go that I can find something more personally fulfilling?
Yeah. That's great. Dave, thank you so much. This has been really enlightening on the topic of meaning and how we can drive meaning as employees and as organizations, where we're looking for that engaged environment. It's not something that we just necessarily find, but it can be cultivated. It can be built. Maybe just a few closing words on how we can grow or build these elements of these competencies, if you will, how engagement is something that we can learn how to become find more meaning in our job, that it's not just something we pull out of the air all of the time. There will be inherent components of that. But talk just in closing about how that's something that we can learn to build upon.
Yeah, something that I can learn myself as an employee, but that's not something that I would say most organizations should focus on. It's not, hey, everybody, go find your own meaning. What an organization, what they can control is creating a shared purpose for everybody. So the second my number one purpose is fulfilling my own needs, then by definition, it's not a shared purpose, unless for some reason you have a coworker that wants to fulfill your needs as well, right? Mm-hmm. So by definition, you can't have a shared purpose if everybody is looking out for themselves. So as an organization, you can create a shared purpose that we can all be striving toward. So that's one thing. The second thing is creating meaning in an organization is a competency. It's a learned skill. It's something that you can teach your managers. Here are the important things and the components of creating meaning or helping your employees see the meaning in their work. So helping those employees see the meaning in their work is something that your managers really can learn. And it's about understanding the values of people and the values of the organization. Where do they overlap? What's the overall purpose? What's our role in fulfilling that purpose? And getting people continually to kind of raise their point of view to our collective shared purpose is something that I think organizations can and should focus on in order to raise the level of meaning in their companies.
That's great. Thank you again. And thank you for taking the time to listen to the DecisionWise podcast. Next time, we'll be discussing autonomy, the A part of the MAGIC acronym, and we will talk about how autonomy relates to how we can build engagement within organizations.